What do you do when you get angry? Do you bottle it up inside and just hope it passes? Or do you get it out and deal with it as soon as possible? Hi, it's David from Life with Parkinson's. If you're new here, welcome. I hope you'll consider subscribing. For everybody else, thank you for coming back and watching another episode. I gotta tell you, this is a difficult episode to make. Anger has always been a challenge for me to manage properly. I may not seem like an angry guy, but when I get angry, and that probably means I've held it in too long. And besides, anger is like one of those taboo subjects that we don't really talk about. I mean, anger is something that's almost looked down on. You shouldn't be angry. And it comes with a lot of negativity attached to it. I mean, doesn't that make sense? Anger is negative, so negative connotation. Is it really okay to talk about anger? Is it a healthy subject? I have been reassured that it is. For me, in my situation, it's almost been a year since my son passed away. And I thought I was doing really well, but the last couple months, I kind of got this anger building up inside me over it. To help deal with it, my counselor, Pam, suggested I make this episode and compare anger to getting a chronic illness. She said a lot of people will understand what you're going through. You just need to talk about it. She also suggested that I make this episode to help process my anger, and deal with it in a healthy way, not bury it inside and jam it down, close the bottle, throw it in the dark closet, toss away the key. But she says to get it out, transform it into something useful. And that's a good way to deal with my anger. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about anger and chronic illness. And I'm just saying chronic illness because a lot of people might relate to this. I know on this channel we normally talk about Parkinson's, but I felt from talking to Pam that it would be better to include chronic illness, just like a blanket chronic illness. She said it would relate to a lot of people. Okay, the loss. When I thought about loss, the first question that came up in my head was, what part of you do you feel that you've lost due to your chronic illness, or in my case, losing Zach? I got to tell you, losing Zach was like losing a very part of my soul. It's almost like I'm not the same person I used to be anymore. It's like I went to bed one night with Zach, and then I woke up the next morning like I was a different person and he was gone. I mean, have you ever felt that way with your chronic illness? I mean, you go to bed and you're fine. Well, you're obviously not fine because something's bothering you. You just don't know what it is. But you wake up the next morning, go to the doctor and get a diagnosis, and you're like, oh my goodness, who the heck am I anymore? Who have I become? And that's exactly what happened to me losing Zach. It was just so sudden. I mean, you're talking to him one day and the next day it's just a voicemail. Like, it's just so incomprehensible. Is that how you guys felt? Like, I know I've lost a lot of me due to Parkinson's. I see that every day. But up to this point, a lot of me, a good part of me hasn't been super angry about getting the illness or the diagnosis. And I don't know why that is. I don't know why I haven't experienced like rage, like just uncontrollable rage over this. Like, I've changed so much, but yet I haven't had the anger. But with my son, the last couple months, I've just been so darn angry over it. Like, it's just like a part of me died, and it's just been taken away. Nobody asked permission to yank that part of my soul from my body. Nobody asked permission, oh, is it okay if we give you Parkinson's or whatever chronic illness you're dealing with? And you're like, well, no, I think I'll pass. We didn't have a choice. It just happened. And that loss is so extreme. It's just like one day you're going to work, and the next day you're like, I'm thinking about retiring, or I'm thinking about moving on. I think I'm going to do something different because my circumstances have suddenly changed and I realize I'm no longer cut out for this work. Like the loss changes us, right? The loss triggers something inside our hearts, our minds, our bodies that it's just never going to be the same. And then all those plans we made, retiring together, settling down together, spending that time together that we planned so many years ago. That's one thing Haley and I did. We're always like, oh man, we want to spend time together. That's why we got married. Because of Parkinson's, we get to, but it's not what we dreamed of. Things have changed. Often we're fighting against that loss. And the shock of it, right? The shock of that change, because for so many years, like dodging flus, dodging colds, and then all of a sudden you just ran up against a brick wall and it's like diagnosis time. Here you go. It's not Christmas, but you get this little gift. And it's just like, I didn't want this. It's a bit of a shock. I felt there was something different about me, but I just maybe thought, well, it's just because I'm getting older. It's like, no, you've got Parkinson's and you've got to deal with it or reel with it. There really isn't any other choice. And that's why I'm so friggin' angry at this loss of my son, because it was shocking. It was unwanted. It was unasked for. Nobody asked permission. And that sense of loss is just so deep inside my body and my soul. It's just like, I know a part of me died because he was my flesh and blood. And, when you've got that, not just emotional connection, but organic connection to somebody, it's just, I don't have the words to describe it, right? I don't have the words to tell you guys how it feels. I don't know if they've been invented yet. It's just so damn confusing. And now I'm starting to see why Pam wanted me to make this episode, because the situations are completely different. Losing a child, getting a chronic illness. But the emotions are based off the same principle. For me anyhow, as I'm sitting here talking about it, it's like, oh, the light bulb's coming on. And it doesn't feel so good. I can see what she's talking about. The loss triggers so many emotions that the mind just can't handle it. And that's what Pam has told me many times. It takes a while to grieve through these things because our brains just can't figure it out. They just can't process it that quickly. Oh, a kid died, I'm going back to work. Or my wife or partner or husband or family member got Parkinson's or another illness, and I'm just going to brush it off. It's no big deal. But it is. It is a big deal because I feel it, and I'm sure some of you feel it. It's just not a bag of popcorn you throw into the microwave for a couple minutes, rip it open and have some, and throw it down into your stomach, and it's a nice little snack. It's like drinking a glass of paint. Okay, that last section was supposed to talk about the loss, but I think I accidentally talked about a lot of the anger. So we're on to the anger section now, and I hope I can do it justice. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I got enough anger left inside of me to do this. Let's carry on to the anger section and see what happens. So as we were talking about last section, you can see now that I have just pounded the anger down, trapped it in a box, put another box over it, put another box over it, put another box over it. It's like a little matryoshka, right? If I keep opening the boxes, eventually I'm going to get to the source of the anger. And I feel I have. I think I understand now a lot of what's been bothering me. It's just the injustice of this situation. It's just not fair. And it's not. It's not fair that we're sick. It's not fair that I've lost a child. The injustice is just, it's not a regular situation. Let's say someone did you wrong. You can choose to forgive them. You can choose to confront them. You can work it out. Say someone stole your car and smashed it up. Maybe they go to jail for a little bit. There's some sort of justice that happens. But with chronic illness and losing a child, it's not the same situation that we've been programmed to do. We have the choice of forgiving that person who's wronged us. We have the choice of seeing that the person that wronged us pays for their crime. With chronic illness, there is none of that. Who do you go and confront? Who do you go and forgive? Nobody. I mean, who do you get angry at? Who do you forgive? Yourself? God? I have no idea. It's an injustice. And as I was talking to Pam, she said this is the toughest thing about being a counselor, is that they're angry too. The counselor is angry too because they don't really know which way to point you to. They can't tell you to go and forgive someone. Go and forgive the disease maker because they messed this one up and they should have given you a different chronic illness or no chronic illness at all. You got mixed up with that person down the street. How do you unload this anger? And I'm like, Pam, I have no idea. I don't know why I'm so angry. It's driving me bananas. But then again, I don't know how to unload it. I don't want to take it out on my wife, Haley, because what do you normally do, right? When you're angry, you target the nearest person that you feel comfortable with. For me, that would be my wife. I don't want to take it out on her. That's not fair. It's not her fault that I'm angry. It's not her fault that I've got Parkinson's. So what do you do? And I'm like, Pam, I'm stuck here. I've never felt this way before. I don't know what to do. And she's like, you got to transform it into something useful. And I'm like, well, what, into a hat, an umbrella, a pair of shoes? She's like, no, try one of your YouTube videos. It'll do you some good to get it out in front of the camera. People will understand and they'll relate to you. So if you're understanding and you're relating to this, please let me know in the comments below in case I feel that I go a little crazy. Another thing that I've really had trouble dealing with the anger is I'm living a life now I don't know how to live. I don't know how to live without my son. He's just been around so long, like 25 years. He's just been a part of my life for so long. I've just been accustomed to his friendship and his company and his conversations. I'm forced to live a life I don't understand. And that's the same with chronic illness. We're forced to live a life we don't understand. And that is a challenge in itself. You go to bed, you're living the old life. You wake up, you're living the new life. It's like, surprise. It's like, oh, just what I didn't want. And then that sadness and depression comes over living that life we're not used to. And then that sadness or depression can drag us down into a little vortex where it's just that when we look up, it's like, I don't think I'll ever get out of this hole again. And then we have that fear with the chronic illness that what am I going to do when my health continues to deteriorate? What am I going to do? And then we get scared of things. Oh, it's like I'm not going to be able to afford it. I'm going to have to move. I'm going to have to live in someone's basement. All these things just pile on top of each other, and it's overwhelming. It's just, how can we process all this stuff, all these questions? And that's the other thing. Is this chronic illness my fault? What if I had done this? It would have turned out differently. If I had done this, or I followed this diet, or eaten this food, or made these decisions with my life, I wouldn't be in this situation that I'm with now. I go through the same questions over losing my son. It becomes a circle conversation. You start out and you talk about the issues and you end up back at the beginning. So then you do it again. You talk about the issues and all the information and you end up back at the beginning. It's a circle conversation and it's a trap. It's a trap. It really is a trap. So after the anger comes the coping. We've been through the loss. We've hopefully lived through the anger. I think it's going to come back for me again in the future. As my Parkinson's does progress, I will get angry because I'm kind of at the point where I can still do some of the things I used to do, but not all of them. And I'm like, oh, that's okay. I'm just putting a happy face on it. Why aren't you smiling? I'm trying to put a happy face on it anyhow, but it's just so dang hard. So, coping. How do we cope with this? Well, if you're looking at me for the answers, I got nothing. That's not entirely true. I have coped with a lot of the loss. It's just, I guess I just hit the anger stage. I don't know what to do about it. actually making this video up to now has actually released a lot of the anger. All of a sudden I feel a little tired. So I guess Pam was right. This is a good thing to do, but let's talk about coping a little bit. If you found a way to cope with your chronic illness, please leave it in the comments below. I would really appreciate the feedback, and I'm sure others out there will as well. Let's see what we have as a coping mechanism. I gotta tell you, sometimes I see coping as being an actor in a really bad play that nobody is watching except myself. Fake it till you make it. Actually, my counselor prefers a different way. She'll often say to me, out with the old, in with the new. So out with the old Dave that didn't have Parkinson's, in with the new Dave that has Parkinson's. One thing I've noticed with chronic illness is that a lot of the times we're not in control. We finally come to that point in our lives and we say, hey, I'm not in control of a lot of my life. So something I found that I can do in my life with chronic illness is I can choose to be nice to myself. I can choose to be gentle on myself. I can choose to eat foods that I know will help. I can choose to take my medication on time. I can choose to make these videos and share my life with other people, which I got to tell you is an extreme joy and something I really look forward to. Just so you know, I love talking to you guys, and I'm really grateful that you watch and contribute and talk back to me. Well, don't talk back to me, but share your lives in the comments as well. This is something I've come to see as a privilege and not something that I feel I deserve, and I don't take it for granted at all. So what was I saying? I can choose to do certain things in my life that I know will help my Parkinson's. And I can choose to do certain things in my life that I know will help deal with the loss in my life over my son. That's why I'm doing this video. I can choose to process the grief and the anger through this video, and I hope you found it helpful, because I most certainly have. I'm feeling a lot better than when I started. So yeah, coping, I can choose to do things that are gentle on myself and will help move myself in a positive direction. And one last thing I found is that illness or loss can be hard on the whole family. Everyone's affected by it. Sometimes I feel so alone in my Parkinson's, and that seems crazy because I've got all you guys to talk to, but sometimes I do feel alone. But then I forget how my illness is affecting other people in the family. It really does affect them. I just encourage you to reach out and talk to others in your family about your loss and about your anger and about your coping. And maybe there's a way that everyone can come together and help you. I just want to thank you for watching and supporting this channel and for listening to my ranting. I hope that we've been able to make a connection here. Thank you for listening, and I hope we can continue to take this journey together into the future. Please feel free to leave your comment below. Have a good day. Goodbye. I'll see you on the next one.